met a buddy of mine who I started working for, who was one of the biggest dealers in the nation who sold unopened material. Guy named Mark Murphy back then called the baseball card kid. And he would always get fines of like, we bought an 86 Fleer basketball case back then when it's a 12 box case. So it was like $60,000. Like that today is worth like 3 or 4 million. But we would set up at shows and he'd pay me $100 a day and, pay for all my flight and hotel. And it was fun, just enjoying traveling at 16 years old. And from there, it just I kind of moved forward, moved to from upstate New York to Long Island, and then moved out to California in '94 and started doing working in film. I moved out to, because I thought to myself at one point our business was kind of having a little bit of a dip, and even though I loved it, and continue to do it, I wanted to do something else that would be fun. I always thought to myself, whatever job I pick, I want that to be the most fun. If I want to be an astronaut, if I want to be Jacques Cousteau and dive to the bottom of the sea to, look at coral or fish, whatever I could dream of, I knew that that'd be something I wanted to do. And I wanted to go to Hollywood. So I went out to Hollywood. And the way I got out there is that around 16, 17 years old, I was collecting Michael Jordan. I was collecting doubles. And all the doubles I sold as my seed money to get out to California. So I'd have enough to pay for rent for 1 year, just so I could, go and get a job, go for what I loved, my passion in film and wanted to direct or produce. I didn't know at the time what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to work on TV shows and movies. So I got my job with Warner Brothers. I was getting paid 325 bucks a week, and I think I was netting $235 a week, and I was making a lot more in cards. So I was doing both of them at the same time. But that doubles collection of the Jordan cards got me out to California and kind of, bought myself time. And I gave myself a year, but I got a job in 3 weeks, at Warner Brothers. I could have worked on the show 90210. I could have worked for, it was Dick Clark Productions at the time, but instead I got a job working on this show called Step by Step, which was at Warner Brothers. And at the same time that ER was in their first year of their show. So I was on the Warner Brothers lot, in heaven, totally passing all these celebrities and all these actors. And you become friends with them because it's their job and it's your job and you're working with them in the job. So I'd play basketball with George Clooney all the time, and I'd see Dean Cain and throw a football with him if I wasn't, if I was on my lunch. At the time where I was throwing a football with Dean Cain, Steven Seagal was doing his movie Under Siege. So it's like you're just totally immersed in like, pinch myself. Like, what is this, heaven? Like, it just like Field of Dreams. But, so, and then I continued to do the sports stuff because I knew that that was my passion. And, kind of cut to Pawn Stars. It was actually 2017, I think, that I started on the show. I would come up with the idea that if you have two passions in life, you can do both. You could possibly throw them in the mixer and blend them together. You figure out a way if you like crocheting and sports. So you make athletic wear, or it's, there's an out and, to be able to do and love, love what you do in multiple facets, multiple categories. So I ended up saying to myself, well, I'm in film. I've already produced a couple things here and there. And now they're hitting me up on eBay saying, well, we like your stuff. Bring it on to, bring it on to Pawn Stars and you can sell it, become a seller. So I said, that would be really cool to kind of mix. But I knew everything about reality TV, and that's reality TV. And I said to them, as long as you make me look good, and because I really love my industry and, I get along with everyone, I don't want to be made to look like a fool in reality TV. 1 episode, 2 episodes, 3 episodes go by, 6 episodes of selling on the show, and they loved me. So that was great. That was a good success, and I said, "Let's keep doing it." And they said, "Well, we're gonna hold off." And then I was a bit confused, and then they said, "We wanna interview you to be the sports expert on the show." And I said, "Well, that's a great transition from selling. They liked me enough for selling, why not, just appraising?" So Steve Grad had referred me, who I owe it to him. He had referred me to the show, and I interviewed. They said, it'll take about like a 10-15 minute interview, and they'll record everything and show the executive producer and everything. An hour and a half later, I'm still talking to the coordinator, and they offered me the position the next day. So I ended up doing about 50 episodes over like a 5-year period, and it was great. It was absolutely it was a great run, and then we got so busy with Memory Lane that I felt, I did 50 episodes, and this is, it's a nice time with them, but, it's going back and forth. I was just, happy to be back, and doing. But do I miss it? It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and the guys were great, and I kind of feel like I left on top, like a pitcher from Major League Baseball that, knows when, it's enough because, you're busy in other parts of your life.